We begin in Lebanon, where the killing of a top Hamas official in Beirut is raising fears that the Israel-Gaza war could spread. The militant group's deputy political leader, Saleh al-Aruri, and 6 others were killed in the strike on an apartment building. A Lebanon state-run news agency said the attack was carried out by Israel. The Israeli government, for its part, has stopped short of confirming whether it was behind the strike.
The aftermath of a deadly strike in the heart of Lebanon, killing one of Hamas's most senior figures in the suburbs of Beirut. Eyewitnesses described hearing a drone before the blast.
At about 5:30, we heard the sound of an explosion, then another explosion, followed by a third blast a few seconds later. There was lots of smoke. The explosion shook our office.
Salah al-Aruri was deputy to Hamas's political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, and a founder of the group's military wing, the Al-Qassam Brigades. Hamas is designated as a terrorist group by the US and EU, among others, and Aruri was on a US terrorist list. He had spent years in Israeli prisons. At the time of his death, Aruri was living in Lebanon as Hamas's key liaison with the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. Aruri also headed up Hamas's presence in the occupied West Bank, and his hometown was Ramallah. Supporters there staged a rally in response to news of his death.
So this is not the end, and if they killed one of the leaders, more leaders and more Palestinians will take the flag and will continue the fighting against this occupation.
Israel has not claimed responsibility for the strike. Officials generally do not comment on operations outside of Israel and the Palestinian territories. But Israeli officials had previously vowed to hunt down Hamas leaders wherever they are. For Lebanon, the strike on Beirut is seen as a violation of its territory. The Lebanese Prime Minister called it an attempt to pull his country into Israel's war with Hamas. Hezbollah and Israel have been exchanging near daily fire along the Lebanese-Israeli border since the war began. This strike, deep in Lebanese territory, has raised concerns of a major retaliation from Hezbollah that would see the war spread far out across Israel's northern border.
DW correspondent Tanya Kramer joins me now from Jerusalem. Tanya, Israel has neither confirmed nor denied that they are behind this attack, yet Netanyahu has promised to go after anyone who is behind the October 7th attacks. Why do you think we haven't seen a clearer statement regarding Israel's alleged involvement?
Well, you're right. Israel has been very tight-lipped about it. They have neither denied nor confirmed the involvement in this killing. We only heard from an official. He went as far as saying that Israel's leadership in the past was known for saying that they named militants or terrorists who killed Israeli civilians as legitimate targets. Now, we understand there were some reports in the Israeli media. They had said that, cabinet members and also members of the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, were told not to comment. There were a few that had actually commented and congratulated the security services for a successful operation, but we haven't heard much since. There was also speculation that this should not further inflame the already high tensions with Hezbollah. And already we heard, of course, the Israeli leadership, as you rightly said, they have said they will go after the Hamas leadership, not just in Gaza, but wherever they are in other countries after the terror attacks on October 7th.
Tanya, you mentioned those concerns about a spillover of the Israel-Hamas war beyond Gaza. How concerned are Israeli citizens that this incident could lead to an even worse security situation for them?
Well, I think there is really a lot of concern, and all eyes are also now on a speech by Nasser Nasrallah, the Hezbollah leader, that was planned ahead much earlier than what happened yesterday. He will give a speech, is expected to be in the evening tonight. Hezbollah had said in a statement after the killing that it would not let this go unpunished. They calling it a serious assault on Lebanon. They also had talked much earlier already about a red line if leaders of certain groups that are operating also that are present in Lebanon would be assassinated. But Hezbollah has also has to take into consideration, of course, the domestic situation. We heard the Lebanese Prime Minister that Lebanon should not be dragged into a war. But there is a lot of concern in Israel because we've seen very high tensions at the northern border in Israel with South Lebanon. There have been a lot of cross-border firing, a lot of rockets, and then also retaliation from both sides. So that could spill out of control. There's also a lot of talk here and concern by Israelis what all this means for potential indirect negotiations between Israel and Hamas about releasing more of the Israeli hostages that remain in Gaza. So there is a lot of concern that there is further escalation.
Tanya, thank you so much for that. That is DW's correspondent Tanya Kramer in Jerusalem. Let's get some analysis here from Andreas Krieg, a Middle East risk analyst and associate professor at King's College London. Welcome. Could you tell us a little bit about Saleh al-Aruri as a figure? What was his role within Hamas, and how big of a blow will his death be?
Hi, good afternoon. I think we should be very careful in terms of accrediting one single individual with a hub sort of position where they play an outsized role in a wider networked organization. He was certainly important symbolically because he obviously created the fighting wing of Hamas. He certainly must have been one way or the other involved and knowledgeable of what happened on the 7th of October, what was going to happen on the 7th of October. He was a liaison between Hamas and Hezbollah, and thereby also liaison between Hamas and Iran, which is an important link for the Israelis that they're trying to sever. Problem, though, is it's never just one individual. So if you take the individual out, he will be most likely replaced by another individual, and it would never had actually this sort of impact. I mean, none of the assassination campaigns that Israel has conducted across the region ever had a massive impact on the organizations that they were trying to weaken.
Well, let's take a quick look at the consequences of his death. You mentioned Hezbollah, and it's, of course, not just Hamas's reaction to this killing here. The strike killed al-Aruri in a Hezbollah stronghold in southern Beirut. Do you expect that we would see retaliation from Hezbollah to his death?
Yes, there will certainly have to be a response because Hezbollah is under pressure. They have to show that their deterrence regime is still upheld. They need to show that they mean business. At the same time, Hezbollah has been very cautious in terms of how they respond to Israeli aggression and have also been very careful not to get sucked into that war directly in Gaza. So, so far, this war has been below the threshold of war. So basically, you know, there have been we've seen these tit-for-tat responses. Every response that Hezbollah has made has been very measured. And Israel has been fairly measured as well in terms of responding to his Hezbollah attacks as well. So this one is an escalation. It's an escalation because it's not a Hezbollah figure that was killed, but it's someone who was under the protection of Hezbollah, who enjoyed the hospitality of Hezbollah, who was killed deep inside their territory. It's a grave violation also of Lebanese sovereignty, which the Hezbollah will have to respond to. The question is just how will Hezbollah respond? Because Hezbollah for many years has kind of, and Iran as well, have kind of delayed their responses to these sort of attacks, which means they do respond. That doesn't necessarily mean they respond immediately. The question is how do they respond? Because I don't think Hezbollah still, you know, has the appetite for a major escalation. It's the Israelis who are playing with fire. It seems that some in Israel might have an appetite to bring the war to Hezbollah. Hezbollah now will have to find a measured approach to this, but I think the response will be one that could come with delay, but will be one that will be far worse than what we've seen so far. coming from Lebanon, as in a strike that will be much deeper inside of Israeli territory. It will be one that potentially could be a major terrorist attack within Israel or against Israeli soft targets also outside of Israel. But there will have to be a response if Hezbollah wants to maintain its credibility.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on DW News with your expertise. That is Andreas Krieg at King's College London. Many thanks.